Hot off the heels of the Dunwich legacy, Fantasy Flight Games put the players up against Hastur with the Path to Carcosa Deluxe expansion. In the expansion's announcement article, they offered a simple pitch. Your task is to uncover the secrets of the unusual play of the King in Yellow, but be cautious, because whenever the play is performed, madness follows close behind. With this deluxe expansion release, the players were given 2 new scenarios and 6 new investigators. Any new piece to build and play with at this early point in Arkham Horror's life was exciting, and the added hook of Hastur himself proved to be an interesting selling point. The anticipation hit hard, and players couldn't wait to see what the design team created with this new Ancient One. Today, the Path Carcosa is widely considered to be the best campaign for Arkham Horror the card game. While it may not be your favorite, it is likely the favorite of the next person in line. The campaign provided interesting twists on the formula, adding meta decisions to push the insanity theme on the players instead of just the investigators. Coupled with some insanely replayable scenarios with engaging hooks, Path to Carcosa is an incredibly complete and solid package. To better understand and share appreciation for the campaign, we're going to look back at its release and its impact on Arkham Horror the card game. This is the history of the Path to Carcosa. On April 17, 2017, the announcement article released. Immediately, in this article, Fantasy Flight Games teased a new mechanic that the campaign would be focusing on, the hidden keyword. At this point in the game, new mechanics weren't explored. The Dunwich Legacy's mechanical identity came from its ability to explore the spaces of the game that already existed, discarding cards from the top of your deck, enemies that hinted certain play patterns, and the like. With the Path to Carcosa, new design space was beginning to be explored. The hidden keyword is a simple mechanic that provides the feeling of insanity to your fellow players. Suddenly, they start acting a little bit different, and the cause for that is the hidden card. They aren't moving as much, they aren't playing as many events, and they just seem to be ignoring cards in their play area. It's strange. Is something influencing them, or are they slipping into the madness around them? In the preview article, players were shown the card Whispers in Your Head Anxiety as an example of this mechanic. It limited the player's options to use certain abilities and can only be removed through its double action. The idea of encounter cards going into your hand was a new design space to explore, so already, even in this announcement article, there is some new excitement regarding the release. However, the hidden mechanic wasn't the only new mechanic teased in the campaign. The announcement article also teased the mechanics of Doubt and Conviction and story cards. Doubt and Conviction were said to be decisions that you marked in your campaign log that could come back to haunt you in later scenarios, while story cards were teased to provide additional narratives and other effects. Already, just in this article, Path to Carcosa was hyped to explore new design space, providing something new and further exploration into what Arkham Horror could be. While in the current state of Arkham, Path to Carcosa is a relatively simple campaign mechanically and structurally, it provided a big boost in showcasing what the game was capable of in comparison to the Dunwich Legacy. To close out the announcement, Lola Hayes was revealed. Lola Hayes is a controversial investigator in Arkham Horror's history. A lot of players love her, and a lot of players hate her, but she was an interesting exploration of what it meant to be a neutral investigator in Arkham Horror the card game. She had to balance a variety of roles, turning her ability into a restriction, allowing her deck building to be very open. Lola's deck building and signature cards were revealed, giving players a chance to theory craft what they could do with the actress and her card pool. While there weren't many other teases in the announcement article itself, Fantasy Flight Games went on to release a variety of articles delving deeper into the hidden, Doubt and Conviction, as well as previewing the investigators that would be included in the deluxe box. This is a lot different than how the game is being covered today, with the majority of the box being shared by content creators across the internet. The first article that came for investigators was The Soldier and the Secretary, giving our first glimpse at Mark Harrigan and Minty Fan. Mark was the first investigator with 5 fists, immediately pushing him to the position of best fighter in the game. He also brought with him Sophie, which was the first double-sided signature in the game. Min, on the other hand, provided a support seeker archetype, and began to touch at the idea of skill cards as an archetype, something that Min is still able to find use of with every new set released today. After the soldier and the secretary came spirits in the occult, focusing on Akachi Anyule. Akachi promised expert spell slinging with her ability to make more use out of her assets with charges. The article also mentioned the mechanical space of the Mystic class, how spells and magic carry risks in their use, previewing the cards Astral Travel and Alchemical Transmutation as 2 new examples. Akachi's article also previewed Archaic Glyphs, the translatable card of the cycle, continuing Seeker's design space established in the Dunwich Legacy. The next article brought a bit of a surprise to the mythos in the Arkham Files world due to the previewing of Safina Rousseau. Safina was a new addition to the universe, making her debut within the Path to Carcosa expansion. Her backstory linked her directly to Carcosa, painting a forgery of the city of Carcosa itself. With this article, we caught a glimpse of how unique this Investigator expansion was going to be. Lola Hayes already brought with her completely new design space, but Safina continued this trend, changing how the game is played during the Mulligan. Not only was the game exploring new mechanics in the campaign, this article showcased what was capable with the Investigator design space as well. The final Investigator preview article was titled Bury Them Deep and previewed the final Investigator William Yorick to the world. Yorick was described as lacking military training, never studying monstrous lore, never dabbling into the occult, and lacking the resources to pursue special weapons or recruit others. This is important to know, because this represents the thematic identity that the Survivor class carries with it. Beyond that, Yorick changed how assets would be assessed forever with his release. His recursion ability cemented more mechanical identity for the class after scavenging, and his signature card granted the ability to give victory points to the players, giving Yorick a very unique toolkit to play which hasn't been matched in design today. Like the Dunwich Legacy, the Path to Carcosa was released with the old release format. Rather than the campaign and the Investigators being completely packaged in 2 boxes, there was the Deluxe Box and 6 Mythos packs. When the Deluxe Box released on September 14th, 2017, the players were able to play the first 2 scenarios and add the Investigators and a small collection of player cards to their own collection. Over the next months, the rest of the cycle would be released, giving players an additional scenarios and a collection of player cards. However, unlike the Dunwich Legacy, the Deluxe Box of Path to Carcosa didn't provide the choice of play order for the first 2 scenarios. Instead of choosing between the House Always Wins or Extracurricular Activity first, the players would always play Curtain Call, and then they would always play The Last King. While this lacked some of the replayability that the Dunwich Legacy box provided, a linear experience akin to the core set was a return to what was expected from the game at the time. The first scenario, Curtain Call, attempted to alter the Arkham formula by throwing a repeatable boss monster at the Investigators in the form of the Royal Emissary. The first section of the scenario involves searching a desolate theater, leading to the discovery of a mysterious masked stranger. If you took too long, the Royal Emissary would appear, but defeating it would give you more time, only before it showed itself again. This mechanic of resetting the agenda deck is commonly used in Arkham today, but it was a novel concept for Curtain Call. Having it linked to a tough but beatable enemy meant that the designers were able to challenge the concept of traditional Doom with treacheries like Black Star's Rise and the Spires of Carcosa. In the climax of the scenario, players would need to chase the man in the pallid mask to the front lobby, giving the players a preview of a repeated design choice that this campaign would challenge the players with. In the Path to Carcosa, the maps are tight with a lot of dead ends, and this will cause the players to have to backtrack constantly, and Curtain Call was the first glimpse of that mechanical concept. After escaping the theater, the players attend a house party with the performing theater ensemble in The Last King. This scenario had a lot of comparisons to Midnight Masks at the time of its release. Players would need to move around a map and gather information from some key sources. There were 5 guest interviews and a sense of dread permeated the party, so it was important to get to work and parlay. The first twist of the scenario came in the form of Diane Devine, who arrives fashionably late. She would lock down some party guests, making it impossible to parlay with them. Fortunately, for the players, there was an exploit in the design that made it so Diana would stay locked onto one guest, allowing players to avoid her mechanic entirely. However, what wasn't avoidable is the second and bigger twist of the scenario. Instead of flipping the second agenda on Doom advancement, one of the party guests experiences a monstrous transformation. One by one, these people the investigators were interviewing start turning into monsters and begin an assault against the players. This was the first big memorable moment of the Path to Carcosa, and it was a phenomenal example of the storytelling that this game was capable of. Mechanically, this scenario explores raising shroud levels and utilizing those shroud levels against the players. It also introduces the then lunatic, now possessed enemies that have gnarly engage triggers, and the man in the pallid mask returns to show the players that he'll be constantly watching, waiting, and needing to be chased down. Between these scenarios, the doubt and conviction mechanic also began to show the players what it was capable of. It asked the question if the investigators believed what they were seeing. Did they have doubt that all of this was real, or do they have the conviction to believe their eyes and trust their minds? This forced hard choices on the players, asking for them to question the morals of their investigators. The first notable choice came at the end of The Last King, where players could light every monstrous guest at the house party on fire, burning them all alive, but were those people actually monsters in the first place? It was this exploration of story and meta that made Path to Carcosa so engaging, and frankly, with the first two scenarios, the campaign was just getting started. The third scenario, Echoes of the Past, brought the investigators to the Historical Society, a classic location from Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. This was something the fans of the Arkham Files games before Arkham Horror loved to see, and it's a big reason why there is often a request to stay in the city of Arkham proper. In this scenario, players need to work against the cultists of Hastur in order to gather records and documents regarding the insidious play, but these cultists won't sit idly by and let you work freely. Like in Chronicle, this scenario attempts to explore what Doom means in Arkham Horror the card game. This recurring design trend through the campaign and Echoes of the Past does so by not placing Doom on the agenda during the Mythos phase. Instead, the cultists around the Historical Society gather Doom, representing their hunt for the same information you are attempting to find. An interesting design twist that this mechanic provided is seen on the Fanatic enemy who first appeared earlier in Curtain Call. In that scenario, the enemy would gather clues from locations and then could be killed to grab those clues, or ignored if they remove clues from victory locations. In Echoes of the Past, the clues that the Fanatics grab turn into Doom, instantly increasing their threat level without adding any extra complexity to the Fanatic card. Let's take a little sidestep here and talk about the ramifications of The Last King. Each guest, if interviewed, gives you a little boost for their future scenario, and if they haven't been slain, the monstrous version of that guest can show up in a later scenario. In this scenario, for example, successfully interviewing Sebastian Moreau gives you a better start, but if Sebastian hasn't been slain, his enemy version will show up to finish the job from the party. With 5 guests to interview and 5 scenarios before the final Mythos pack, it was obvious to see the trend for the rest of the campaign. This was a very unique application of past scenarios haunting future scenarios, and a big thematic through line for the campaign The Path to Carcosa. Echoes of the Path provides another choice for the players with 2 resolutions. They can gather clues from the hidden library or face off against the possessed Oath Speaker. Each path brings a different reward in the form of the Clasp of the Black Onyx or the Tattered Cloak. Funnily enough though, the Clasp of Black Onyx's path doesn't allow you to get the payoff for the Clasp, begging the question if this was an accidental oversight or a meta decision to further add to the madness of the campaign. With the Historical Society behind them, the players head to another 2nd edition landmark, Arkham Asylum. In the 4th scenario, The Unspeakable Oath, the investigators make their way into the asylum in hopes of finding a man named Daniel Chesterfield in an attempt to break him out. This scenario is dripping with mood and tells an incredible story from its first turn to its resolution. A purposeful design choice to help tell this story is found in the deliberate pacing of the scenario. This scenario is a first agenda with 2 Doom threshold. This agenda, locked inside, acts as the calm before the storm and gives the player some time to set up and get their footing before things go sideways. When that agenda advances, the possessed enemies get shuffled in the encounter deck. Not only does this provide a gameplay threat, it also adds to the story, giving the vibe that the asylum itself has caught on to the investigators. This pacing is carried through on the flip of the 2nd agenda, adding a monster enemy into the encounter deck but also providing the next big twist of the scenario. Constance Dumaine, if she's not been slain, appears in the garden of the asylum. This pacing is tight and suffocating on the blind play, but it carries itself into replays as well. Unspeakable Oath is rarely easy because it asks a lot of the players while tightening the noose from turn 1 directly to turn 16. In your search for Daniel Chesterfield, the investigators will need to make some decisions that can make the players begin to question their character's sanity. Mechanically, it isn't too shocking. Pass a test to light a fire in the kitchen or take some damage to incite a fight amongst the patients, but thematically these are questionable choices for your investigator to be making. This is further exploration on the question of your character's sanity over the course of the campaign, and it's an interesting use of an unreliable narrator in a narrative card game. This is further explored with encounter cards. Straitjacket is a powerful treachery that adds to this story. The flavor text reads, "What are you doing? I'm not crazy." This could represent a pitiful cry from your investigator as the guards wrongfully restrain you, but it could also represent a common rambling from an often too troubled patient. It is through this idea that doubt and conviction is thrown on the players, and not only their investigators. Additionally, the possessed enemy set returns, joined by Mad Patient, providing extra stress on the players responsible for enemy management. These are just citizens of Arkham, but you're forced to fight them in your quest to solve the madness behind the King in Yellow, and they punish you for that accordingly. While working across the asylum and attempting to cause distractions, steal keys, and discover Daniel, the tight and restrictive map design returns. There are areas on the maps that are dead ends that you'll be forced to enter and backtrack out of. Then, when all your objectives are behind you, you're only left with one thing to do: run. Get out of the asylum before it's too late. However, that won't be easy. The investigators find themselves in the basement, and they'll need to backtrack through the winding maze of the asylum to escape. And let me tell you, players are going to be desperate for escape. This scenario did a first for Arkham Horror the card game. While past scenarios could lead to campaign loss, there wasn't a scenario that could lead to investigator elimination. Any investigators who don't escape the asylum are left locked inside, and the player is forced to build a new replacement investigator to continue the campaign. This is a memorable design choice and a fantastic consequence to merge the mechanics and narrative again, while also adding extreme tension to any subsequent plays of the scenario. In the interlude between the next scenario, the Path to Carcosa further explored what the game was capable of. The players, not the investigators, are given a choice to heed Daniel's warning. Doubt and conviction is challenged again, but this time it has lasting consequences that extends beyond the scenarios. Heeding the warning adds the biggest meta twist in the history of Arkham Horror the card game, and it hasn't been replicated since. From now on, saying the name Hastur out loud at any point during setup or a scenario will result in direct horror being dealt to that player's investigator. This further adds to the mystique of Hastur and brings the players themselves into the story and the mythos. It was damn cool then, and it's damn cool now. After this, the investigators head to Paris to face the Phantom of Truth. From here on out in the campaign, there are less twists regarding the campaign structure, but rather each scenario tries to push something new in the game's design space. The Phantom of Truth is all about doubt and conviction. First, the players get a weakness that changes its effect depending on if the group has more doubt or conviction, and the scenario itself alters depending on the same metric. After making their way through the purposely insane maze of the campaign guide, the players are treated to a map of Paris and a simple objective: hurry and get clues. When the act and agenda advance, the organist reveals himself, and the objective changes depending on if doubt or conviction is higher. On one path, you're desperately pursuing the organist to try and discover how he's connected to Hastur and the King in Yellow, while on the other path, you're desperately fleeing from the organist as he attempts to hunt you down. This also changes how Doom works, changing the Doom clock from a negative to a positive depending on the version of the organist you have. While you're attempting to survive as Onslaught, Doom in play subtracts from the agenda, meaning that you have to survive longer. This changes the threat of cards like Spires of Carcosa in an interesting way, because they provide a roadblock to progressing the scenario as opposed to causing you to potentially lose the scenario directly. The continual exploration of what Doom means in the Path to Carcosa doesn't end here, but this is another scenario in the campaign that attempts to twist Doom on its head in an interesting way. This scenario's Doom reduction concept has been used again in different scenarios, showcasing its impact on the design of the game. Next up, the Pallid Mask released, and this scenario's most notable mechanic is the Catacombs deck. This is a mechanic that replicates a winding maze of the catacombs under Paris and does so without much overhead, and also allows for variance and play-to-play of this scenario. The variety of the locations themselves is a shining point of this scenario, giving a large variety of memorable locations to paint a picture of the catacombs that the investigators are exploring. This picture is further painted by encounter cards. Ghosts pursue the investigators, causing paranoia, holes in the ground open up beneath them, and other humans exploring the catacombs can suddenly change into something much, much worse. About a third of the way through the scenario, the agenda advances and a boss monster appears. The specter of death, representing all the lost and troubled souls deep within these catacombs, begins to chase down the investigators. An interesting fact about this enemy is that he has the alert keyword without it being called alert. We'll talk about alert more during the Forgotten Age week, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. This scenario reaches a climax when the investigators are able to track down the man in the pallid mask in the Tomb of Shadows. Due to the setup of the Catacombs deck, it'll always be deep in the catacombs, meaning the players will need to work hard to get there. Then, as with everything else in this campaign, they are faced with a dual choice: a path that reflects their doubt, or a path that reflects their conviction. One path leads the investigators to follow the masked stranger to a passage that was once blocked, and the other causes the catacombs to begin to collapse, causing a panicked flee towards the entrance. Each path further pushes the connective tissue of the campaign that is the duality of the doubt or conviction mechanic. Beyond this, the scenario doesn't try anything too experimental with the Arkham formula. It's a traditional feeling Arkham experience boosted up by the absolutely brilliant mechanic that is the Catacombs deck. In the penultimate scenario, Black Star's Rise, the concept of Doom is further explored again by replacing the act card with a second agenda, providing 2 agendas for the scenario. When Doom is placed on the agenda, the investigators get to choose which agenda it is placed on, ultimately giving another sort of meta application to the doubt and conviction mechanic that reveals itself during the scenario. As the investigators make their way through the scenario, they are tasked with determining where the path to Carcosa will open up, whether it be above the island in the Abbey Tower or near the water at the Chapel of St. Albert. This search demands exploration and Doom management, which provides interesting challenges for the players. The second agenda on each path gives a different static effect that can cause problems, and there are treacheries in the encounter deck that become stronger depending on how far each agenda has advanced. Pursuing the wrong path can lead to a tighter clock at the end of the scenario, while the monsters of Carcosa do everything they can to hold you off your entrance. Mechanically, most of the exploration in this scenario is seen in the double agenda, something that hasn't been replicated exactly like this. Black Star's Rise represents the climax of the duality theme seen throughout the campaign, providing the final split path towards the end, but it's not the last measure of the investigator's doubt or conviction. The final scenario, Dim Carcosa, opens with a sprawling map with a lot of verticality. The players are dropped either at the top of Carcosa or the bottom, depending on if they entered from above or below in the last scenario. During setup, a unique mechanic is presented to the players that was not seen in the Dunwich Legacy and hasn't been seen since. Each investigator is dealt horror equal to half their sanity, but, lucky for them, sanity works differently in the realm of Carcosa. In this scenario, investigators could not be defeated by taking too much horror. However, the more insane you are, the harder the threats of the scenario can hurt you. Certain cards scale harder against you the more mad you are, and there is a chance, if you have too much horror on your investigator, that you can suddenly be lost to the madness around you. But there is hope in Dim Carcosa. As they unravel the stories of this place, there is a chance the investigators may be able to regain their sanity and sense of self. Dim Carcosa also gives the final payoff to both doubt and conviction in the amount of times that the investigators dealt with the man in the pallid mask. The number of successful tallies under chasing the stranger gives the investigators more time in Carcosa, while the doubt and conviction determine which version of Hastur you faced. This can change Hastur from a force that is within the investigators' own minds to an entity that roams around the map, hunting the investigators down. Each mode provides a constant threat to the players, but the mechanics of the situation change depending on the multiple choices the players made over the course of the campaign. On the enemy side, the scenario brings in some lore-connected big hitters while also bringing back the fanatics for one final push, leading them to all congregate at the Palace of the King, where the secret to defeating Hastur lies. This scenario also revisits the story cards first seen in The Last King, and they paint a picture of the world of Carcosa while also giving you strength against and respite from Hastur. As with previous scenarios, Dim Carcosa forced a lot of backtracking on the players with awkward dead ends that held crucial pieces to achieve victory. Dim Carcosa is truly a collection of all the mechanics seen in the previous scenarios. This all leads to a tense final showdown at the palace and brings the Path to Carcosa campaign to a close. Are the players able to rise up against the madness of Hastur? And if they are they able to escape it fully? For the first time, Arkham added a hidden epilogue that paints an exciting picture and is a fun little button on an incredible campaign. The Path to Carcosa is rated incredibly highly from the community, and through its design it's not hard to see why. While the Dunwich Legacy was able to prove that Arkham Horror the card game had legs, the Path to Carcosa proved that Arkham Horror was able to explore design space and themes well beyond what was thought possible. It was able to take the concept of an unreliable narrator and force it onto the players, while not sacrificing clean design or being too complicated in the process. Each scenario attempted to bring a memorable hook, all while dragging the players back to the question of, when faced with this madness, do you doubt yourself or are you convicted in your belief? Is this real or are you slipping away? It brought the players all across Arkham through the theaters, the Historical Society, and the Asylum, only to venture off to Paris to further find answers to the questions that the mad play asked. In the current world, Carcosa continues to be the most recommended campaign to new players. When people ask what they should buy next, Paths Carcosa is seen as the next recommendation. It'll be a shame to lose this campaign with the current and legacy rotation, so I do hope that there is some sort of way to keep this campaign alive, whether it be some sort of print on demand or locking it in current. This is an incredible piece of design and showcases how board games can be art. As only the second full campaign, Paths Carcosa made a statement of what Arkham Horror the card game could be. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video in its format. I tried to take some feedback from the history of the Dunwich Legacy and focus more on the design and its impact as opposed to the sentiment regarding each scenario. As I try to do, I'm going to continue to explore how these videos take shape, but I appreciate your support and your comments, so let me know what you think. See you all for the rest of the Paths Carcosa week. I hope you enjoyed the videos. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.